The wood chipper has finally chipped all the small branches in the field. And I finished making 2 more chip wagons, and we nearly filled them. So now there are 5 wagons in the drying tunnel. So now it's time to make a machine that can cut the thicker branches. Now I've been planning this project for a while, so I've been collecting useful things. Here's what I started with. This is a wheel from an old water shut-off valve. Thanks, Aaron. And here's a flatbed pulley, courtesy of Chris. A couple of V-belt pulleys from the market. And a reducer gearbox I've had for years. 50mm shaft. And some 1.5-inch shaft. Assorted bearings. I had most of the bearings already, but I did buy some of the shaft. I'm sure you could make all sorts of interesting things with all this. But all I want to do is drive 2 big blades round and round slowly, using the engine in the field via the reducer gear and maybe a line shaft to get the speed about right. The problem is I don't really know what speed I'm looking for, so I'll have to experiment with the timing in the workshop and work out what pulley sizes I'll need between this and the engine. Of course, not all the parts will just fit together. For instance, getting these to match will be a challenge. But to start with, I set about making a frame to support everything, using chunky bits of wood bolted together with brackets that I cut on the plasma cutter from offcuts from the pizza steels. I wanted to make it solid, so I put the brackets on both sides and used through bolts to clamp them up tight. The main wheel, which will have the blades attached to it, has a hole in the middle, conveniently enough, but my axle isn't big enough to fit it, so I had to make a couple of flanges to bridge the gap, one on each side, bolted together. Offer it up now in case we go too far. Okay, so bearing there. Oh, that's not one. That's right. The right size bearing. See, I'd like to come in. That looked all right. And I found a pulley for the input side of the gearbox, and that fitted, which was easy enough. And I found a sprocket for the other side, but the taper lock part of it has seen better days. I think it'll be fine once it's locked in place. And then I made a base plate for the gearbox with slotted holes to allow for adjustment, and used the loop of chain I had, and it was beginning to look quite good. So I cut out a couple of blades. Having to stop halfway through to change the plasma tip. These will go onto the rim of the wheel and should slice through the log. That's the plan anyway. Yes, these are just mild steel, so they won't hold up their edge for very long. But I'm not buying anything more expensive till I know that the design works. I cobbled together a ledge that traps the logs, except in this case it's not a log, just a small piece of scrap wood, and immediately I realised that I'd underestimated the forces involved. Of course I was just turning the pulley by hand, but eventually it will be hooked up to the stationary engine and things will be moving a lot faster. But even now, at this speed, I could see that the frame wasn't going to be able to cope with the loads involved. Yes, the blade would slice through the wood, but it doesn't want to, and it would rather push the frame apart if it could. And while that's happening, the two sprockets were being dragged sideways towards each other. There's no way this could hold up to my big old engine. So, sadly, I went back to the drawing board and started again. Will was around that day and helped make a start on a stout steel A-frame made from 4-inch channel iron. Originally I was going to make 2 A-frames and connect them together, but decided a tripod shape would be better and save a bit on materials too. So I made a couple of platforms at the right height for the gearbox and the main shaft, which seemed like a neat arrangement. And with this much triangulation, surely nothing could go wrong. But then I hit another snag. When the pressure came on, everything stayed where it was supposed to be this time, but this happened instead. The chain slipped. The gearbox was just too close to the main sprocket, which meant that the chain didn't wrap itself around the sprocket enough, so not enough teeth were engaged. It would have been perfectly good in lots of other applications, but here, where the pressures are so high, this was the next weakest link. And that was a bit disappointing. I had to reposition the gearbox, which meant another platform, more materials and more chain and more time. But finally it looked like it might work. Well, you know, might, who knows. I'm calling it a log chomper because I don't know what the real name is. It slices the end off a branch, so it's not a saw, and it's not a splitter. Wonder what it really is. I wonder whether the radius is just too big. If so, I'll have to make a new, smaller wheel. And I know that often this type of wood chopper is drum shaped, with the blades at right angles to the wheels, which would also reduce the radius, so that's another option if necessary. But my design is simpler and easier to make. Next I need to make a concrete plinth for this outside by the engine and work out how to move it. But the horses are still living in that space, so I'm held up a bit there. But of course, there's so much else going on here. There are trees to plant and dead ones to fell. We're laying a hedge and harvesting the willow.
Yeah, can Henry do that?
We'll try, Henry. Alright?
And I need to build some more railway line and some more chip wagons. And of course I'm itching to get back to the steam engine project. Lots to talk to you about in that one. And that's without all the usual day-to-day stuff. So bear with me if the videos aren't as frequent as you'd like. I'm doing my best.